Hey everyone, this is All Out in the Open. I'm Charlie Bird here with Ben Shalati.
I'm thrilled to be here, Charlie.
Amazing.
This is our first open up episode, and on these episodes, we open up and talk about important things going on in one another's lives and in the community at large. And this is the second half of a conversation that we had last week.
Yeah, this episode's a little bit non-traditional. So last week we had a conversation and it got a little tense, and then we made everyone sit in the discomfort for a week, which I think was a little bit awkward for us because we moved through things and then everybody else was reacting.
There was like, I am having feelings about this episode,
And we're like-
and I'm going to tell you about them.
We moved through it, but I think it was good. I think that's emblematic of what happens. Like, you have to sit in a lot of discomfort in this LGBTQ religious space, and that's kind of why we wanted to model that. But that being said, if you haven't listened to the previous episode, go do that first, or the rest of this probably won't make very much sense.
Yeah. And one of my friends said something about the last episode that I really loved. She said, the episode felt really awkward and uncomfortable, and I loved it because I've had so many conversations like that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we just kind of accidentally captured a conversation I think is emblematic of being in this space.
Yeah, I kind of felt like we hit lightning in a bottle, actually. Or not hit, but caught.
Yeah, you catch the lightning in a bottle.
So this is the second half of that. It'll be kind of our resolution, and then we'll come back at the end and share some final thoughts. And we hope that y'all feel resolved, because we do.
Yeah. So enjoy the second half of the conversation.
Ben, can I ask, like, what is the greatest source of your pain right now?
Like I said, it's feeling like I don't belong, I don't fit in, and that people are going to reject me.
Where do you feel that? Like, who do you feel that from right now?
It's because I've been going to my ward for like 7 months, but I was gone a lot at first, so I missed a lot. So I've been like actively going, like there, like presently for like 3 months, and like on and off for like the first 4 months. And
Okay.
and my ward, I hope people from my ward don't hear this, because
It's okay if they do. I hope they do. This is real. This is real stuff.
because they're all lovely people. But like I live right by BYU, and so my neighborhood is like all BYU professors, retired professors, and like the young married people who live in their basements.
Okay.
Like that is my ward, and it is the most high functioning ward I've been in. Like everyone is like on top of things. Like there's a PowerPoint every Sunday school lesson, like so put together.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, like, I mentioned previously, like going to the temple with the sister I minister to.
Yeah.
And then we went out to dinner after with a few people, and she was like talking about dating because she's single, and I was like blah blah blah, and I like gave her some compliments. I was like, I can say that because I'm gay, and she's like, you're gay? I was like, yeah, I'm gay, and because like I've known her for months. I like wear this rainbow wristband, and
Yeah.
and I was surprised she didn't know.
You're not out in your ward.
So the weird thing about my ward is before I was like in it, I had met the bishop randomly because he like came over my house to see Charlotte, and then we sat next to each other on a plane randomly months later, and we were like wearing masks. He's like, "Are you Ben Shalati?" I was like, "I am." "Who are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm Charlotte's bishop." Blah blah blah. And so he had me give a fifth Sunday lesson in their ward.
Yeah.
And that was like 3 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
And it's like a lot of people in my ward were like there for that, but a lot of people weren't. And so I don't know. So like I'm not. It's true. I'm like not out of my ward.
This makes so much more sense.
And
Because when you're hearing General Conference, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't feel secure in my ward. And this is the first time in a long time that you probably haven't felt, well, I'm curious if this is the first time you haven't felt like really needed.
well, so also here's the thing. I'm definitely not needed in my ward. That's so true.
This makes so much more sense.
Like if I didn't show up, they'd be just fine.
And that's how you've been gay. You've been like so necessary. Like, you were at an adult singles ward before this. You were the one who was put together that people looked to and needed, and we're like, Ben, we're so glad you helped with this. Ben, we're so like, we love that you're here. Thank you for being here. We need you here. And they knew you were gay, so there was this extra level of thanks for coming even though you're gay.
Yeah.
And being a temple worker and doing the ministering and doing this and this. And now you're at this new ward and it's just running like a well-oiled machine, and you feel like you got lost through the cracks.
Yeah, definitely. But also like, and I didn't realize I was feeling this until we started talking about it, but I am actually afraid to come out to my ward.
Oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense to me.
And I feel like so much calmer too.
That's the annoyance.
Yeah.
There was this thing you didn't know what to.
Yeah.
That makes it, because I was like, I don't know how to validate.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because what I was validating wasn't the pain you're actually feeling.
Yeah. Because, okay, this is making more sense now. Like there's this rhetoric that if people come out, then they are like bringing attention to themselves or talking about sex when they don't have to.
For sure.
And I guess I was feeling like now if I come out, people are going to judge me in my actual ward. Okay, this is making sense.
It sounds like your ward is older. The demographic is older.
For sure.
So it's
one of those newlyweds and nearly dead.
Yeah, so you're like looking at conference, you listen to general conference through the lens of an 80-year-old person in your ward who might attach it to...
Or a 20-year-old who just got married.
This makes... Man, I'm sorry.
I hadn't thought about that.
And it's a family ward. This is the first time that you've been a single person in a ward for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it seems like...
And it's Tucson.
There you go. This makes so much more sense to me.
Okay, that is why this was harder. I hadn't realized this.
Oh, look at you smiling.
I mean, still, it's like...
this is good, though.
But now I know what to do with this.
You don't know what to do with it?
No, I do know what to do with it.
What do you need to do?
I need to notice the moments when I am not coming out to someone, and then realize, like, figure out where that's coming from, and if it's coming from a place like I'm hiding, to not hide.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I do wear this rainbow wristband.
Yeah, but
So,
but not everyone's looking at your wristband.
It's true.
Straight people are not hypervigilant to gays the way gay people are hypervigilant to being gay or straight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, nobody else is scanning to see if someone's gay all the time.
Yeah.
Just gay people. That's why gay people have good gaydar, because we notice. But straight people are like, huh?
Yeah. Oh, this makes so much sense now. Okay, so I minister to 3 people in my ward, and 2 of them are widows, and they're lovely. But one of them, I so hope people listen to this. One of them was like so nice, but like based on how she talks, she is afraid of gay people. And I haven't been like, hey, I'm gay. But like my ministering companion, like I didn't know him. Like we met at this woman's house,
right?
Like because I said the appointment was like, hey, we're going at this time, and like he met me there, and so we talked, and then we visited the other widow, and then like weeks later we were helping someone move, and I was like, blah blah blah, I'm gay, and he was like, well, you're gay? I was like, yes, clearly, and I guess I just forgot that like people don't know
the root. Oh, I love that we got to the root. Okay,
yeah.
You seem like way happier now.
Yeah, this is relieving to realize where the problem is.
You've identified the source of the pain.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because I'm hiding in my ward. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm such a self-aware person, I thought.
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh. Now that I'm thinking, sorry, I'm having a...
Go ahead, please.
When people like start asking about my life, I change the topic because I'm not sure how they'll respond to me coming out to them.
Yeah.
And that's so weird because I haven't felt that in so long because I just like assume everyone knows I'm gay.
Well, it's like, in some ways it sounds like it's some sort of like regression. Like you're pulling back into this earlier version of yourself who did do that to claim social safety, like to try to find it.
And that's made it worse. Okay. It's so funny because like I love my steak. I have so many friends in my steak. Like, and it's awesome. Like when I go to state conference, it's a blast. But my ward, and I have like some good friends in my ward, just like neighbors I know, but most of the ward I'm just not very connected to.
Yeah.
So, and I think I need to be more aware of the times I'm hiding and stop doing that. But then this brings up that fear, like I said before, of, you know, people be like, oh, Ben's coming out of church. That's inappropriate. Yeah. And I just need to like deal with that. Because it's not inappropriate.
I think it's so cool to have like the actual source of the pain. And I'm so glad that we went through that exercise, because then you're like, oh, actually, this is why this is happening. And I really think as queer people, as LGBTQ members of the church, there is so much that impacts us, like impacts our nervous system based on past experience. There's so much weird stuff that you don't always know where the pain's coming from.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's this older gentleman, I don't know how old he is, he must be in his 80s, who teaches Sunday school. And he does a great job. And But I would describe him as someone who would be more conservative based on the comments he makes. And he listened to this podcast I was on, like an interview I did on a more conservative podcast just a few months ago. And he came up to me at church. He's like, I was watching this YouTube video, and suddenly you were on there.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, what'd you think? He's like, it gave me a lot to think about. And I was like, great, I gotta go. And I'm surprised I didn't, like, I was afraid of what he was going to say.
You're afraid of being rejected. No, you are.
But which is so odd, because I wouldn't feel that way about someone I didn't have to see at church all the time. Because I don't want my ward to be somewhere I don't feel safe. And that just like brought up a lot of feelings in me of like, these are people who are supposed to be my family, and what if they're not?
And that's freaking real, because sometimes they aren't.
Yeah. And I didn't realize until we had this conversation that I was so afraid of being rejected by my ward.
Yeah.
Because, which is odd, because like I never have been. Like it's always been amazing. It's just this one feels different.
Well, and you're in a different spot.
That's true.
And I think that's what I was trying to say earlier, because before you could be like, I work at BYU, I'm at the honor code. Here are all these easy entry points into understanding and accepting me and seeing my value and asking me to serve and trusting me with the ward.
Yeah.
But now you're just like, I'm gay.
That's definitely what it is. And I'm gay, and I asked a boy out last week, and he said no, but still I did it.
Yeah. This makes so much more sense to me now.
Make a lot more sense. Yeah, I'm like actually able to be rejected by this ward, where like and here's the thing, like I feel good with myself. Like with my choices, I feel good. But I feel like I'm trying to say this the right way. I feel like their rejection of me, if they did reject me, would be quote unquote valid in their eyes.
And what if that's true?
Well, I don't like that, but I guess it can be true. I guess I've been trying to avoid that.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm so happy we got here. I'm like, this just like, you seem happier.
I am happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
The annoyance is gone.
Yeah. So I knew something wasn't hitting. I just knew it.
Well, we hit it.
Yeah. Well, and people will reject you, Ben. Like the sad truth about it is, some people will only feel like you're safe if you are single and celibate and work at the BYU Honor Code. And that's not about you. It's about them.
Yeah. I just don't like that.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
And I know it's the truth. And I know that's something I just have to deal with. But it's still a reality that sucks.
Totally.
So, but
does that feel invalidating to you to say that to yourself?
No.
I'm so interested, because like 30 minutes ago, which I guess now is like last week. Hey guys, behind the curtain.
We record 2 episodes at once, whatever.
Before that, I was like kind of saying that like it's a sucky reality, and you have to accept it, and it is awful.
What am I feeling about that? I think it just feels better when I say it instead of when I'm told it. And it's so interesting, because I don't think I've like ever had this like such a visceral experience where I was like so annoyed, and then once I figured out where the pain was coming from, I like felt instant relief.
Yeah. Tell me more.
And now I'm wondering, like, back in my previous wards where I like was out, but I mean, the only thing I'm doing differently is like going on some dates.
But you're literally not doing anything differently. I think the difference is you don't work at BYU anymore. And you're not like single and celibate.
But like when I was in Tucson,
you actually are, though.
I'm still very single.
But you know what I mean? You're not like, this is my path. You're like more open to different futures than you used to be.
Right. Yeah. And I'm trying to put myself like because like in my last ward, I quit. I left BYU. I told my bishop I was going to start dating. He was really wonderful about it. And that was all fine. Like there was no problems there. It's just now that these are people I don't know. Yeah. And my last ward was a mid-singles ward, people 31 to 45.
It's just a mixed bag there.
Yeah. And it's like everyone's life didn't work out the way they
That's like, of course you're gay.
Yeah. And, like I wasn't even the only person named Ben who was gay in my ward.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting too, because I noticed that even when you were talking about the word, you're like, it is so high functioning. It works so well. And it was like as if that was threatening to you.
Yeah, I guess it just makes me feel a little less needed. Yeah, because usually I have like a calling that matters. Sorry, they all matter. There's I don't know, a calling that's more visible.
Yeah.
And now I don't.
And it helps to have a visible calling, because then
it builds trust.
It validates that your existence is valid and trustworthy at church, even though you're gay. Mm-hmm. It's like a gold star of approval, and now you don't have a gold star of approval from your calling or your job or where you envision your life potentially going.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so now I just have to. I mean, I don't think the right thing for me to do would be like next fast and testimony meeting, be like, hey, everybody, I'm gay.
Right.
But just to let it come up organically and not shove it down when it does.
I'm sorry that you felt like you had to do that.
And
it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah.
Is there a way to give yourself the gold star of approval and be okay if people discredit it?
I mean, it's weird because I do feel like I do that.
I know, but not in this context.
I know, which is why this is weird.
Like, it is scary. It is scary to not have the same.
Yeah, I mean, like in like my previous ward, like when I was in Tucson, like I came out in the singles ward I was in, and people knew me, and I like that was gonna be fine. But it was I was new to coming out, so that was scary.
Yeah.
But then I moved to a Spanish branch, which was a family ward, like a family branch, and when I came out there, like I was terrified, but I knew like it was the right moment. I knew it was supposed to happen. I wrote all about it in my book. You can read it in there. And I was so well received, and it was like this absolutely beautiful thing. And like most people didn't know me. Like I was this random white single guy in a Spanish speaking branch in Tucson. But
so why do you feel like these people will reject you?
I think it's because I'm, quote unquote, not living church teachings by going on dates with guys. I think that's
what I meant, because you don't have the insurance for the first time you're actually a gay person. Like,
yeah,
just like an exposed, like a naked gay person. Yeah, that makes sense that you'd be scared, and that makes sense that perceived lack of social safety would make you hypervigilant at general conference when you know everyone in the ward is watching, because it's such a high functioning, like, devout ward.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah, thank you for that validation just now.
I mean it though, like that's hard. That sounds like really like scary to your system. Like you're like betting on yourself and the people without the usual safety nets that you have.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it reminds me of? Cheerleading.
What?
Well, it reminds me of like doing a trick for the first time without like the mat. Like there's like this, there's multiple ways to like learn a trick. So if you're learning like a double back, or I'd say a double full, like that's a full twisting, or sorry, it's a double full twisting layout, right? Round off handspring, flip with 2 twists, straight body.
That sounds very scary.
It is. And I was terrified of it the first time I attempted, and I went into a foam pit, right? And so it drops, right? So you have a couple feet down plus foam if you mess up. And then once you start doing well in that, you put a mat inside the foam pit. And you still have a couple, like a foot or two drop, but then you're landing on a more solid surface.
Yeah.
And once you hit that, you move to the resi, which is just like a super soft mat that's even with the spring floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving that to the spring floor is so scary because it's just the floor.
Yeah.
Or moving that to like the grass or a dead mat where there's not, like, the stakes are so much higher, and it's like, I better know how to do this trick because I could seriously be injured if I don't hit it right now.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it's like you've been being gay into the foam pit or into the resi, and now you're at this new ward. I've never seen anyone move from like the resi or the foam pit to the spring floor and not like fake themselves out a couple times or like pull out of the twist early. And now, and so you're like, I've been faking myself out and pulling out early from this trick, and it's so scary to do it for the first time. It's because you have to walk the walk. You have to actually trust that what you've been doing is good enough.
Yeah. The feeling I'm experiencing right now is a bit of embarrassment because I have so much support in my life. Like there are people in this exact same situation that I am in, but their families aren't okay with them, or they don't have a good friendship network.
Yeah.
And I have all those things. Like when I called my family, like, hey, I'm gonna start dating. They're like, yeah, this is amazing. Let us know how it goes. We can't wait to, if you date a guy, we want to meet him. Yeah. I have that. So I'm just like embarrassed that like this has been so triggered for me when I've probably had it really easy. Because the truth is like I've got like, because I've lived in the neighborhood for a while, like I knew a number of people already, and they're all lovely, and like one couple said like, Ben, come stay with us every week, like we would love that, you know, like I'm not like forgotten. So if I have it this bad, if this was affecting me so much, I didn't realize it. I imagine that other people don't have those same supports or have an even more struggle.
Yeah, it's hard.
So, so I guess I'm just like a little embarrassed that I was struggling so much. You shouldn't be embarrassed when you struggle. I know that. But I just feel bad that other people have it worse.
I think it's easy to see in other people too, though. Because like, it was interesting because I felt like in our last episode, I guess 30 minutes ago, I was like, Ben, but you have support. Like you do, you know? And it's easier to see when it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scarier when it's you. And it makes so much, I love that analogy because it's just like one of my buddies being like, Charlie, you can do this. Like I've seen you do it into the resi so many times perfectly.
Yeah.
But I'm still doubt myself until I do it.
Yeah. These are the fears I'm unpacking right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because like I've talked to my bishop. He's a lovely person, but we've never like sat down and talked. Like, because this is what I'm experiencing, which you explained to me, but I couldn't quite hear because we hadn't figured out the situation. Yeah. Is that I don't want my ward to reject me, but that is a real possibility. I just need to be okay with that. And I just have to, and they probably won't. Some people probably feel uncomfortable, because I can't remember how it happened, but I came out to one of the widows I minister to, not the one who I was like scared to come out to. That'll happen at some point. I'll have to just like make that happen on our next ministry visit somehow. Like blah, blah, blah. I went on this date. No, just kidding. I would do that. But somehow it came out that I'd written a book.
Yeah.
And she's like, I would love to read it. So then like the next week I like stopped by her house and dropped off a copy of my book. And she's like, I can't wait to read this. This is so cool that you wrote a book. Like, she's like, I would love to read this. I was like, great. And I was like, and I like left on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like this 80-year-old woman is going to read my book, and she already is like so pumped that I'm her ministering brother. And then she told all of her grandkids about me, and one of them happened to be my friend. Mm-hmm. And he was like, Ben, how are you everywhere? He's like, you minister to my grandma? She's like the best. Like, I'm so glad you're her ministering brother. I was like, oh, yay. I can't really think about this because I don't, once again, people are going to hear this.
Sad.
But she has a son who lives with her who is very like by the book.
Yeah.
And he was in the room when I talked about being gay, and I was like, he is not going to be okay with this. And then when he walked me out, he's also single and older. And then he like invited me to all these singles activities. Like, you should come to this and come to this and come to this. Like, we'd love to have you. Like, this person that I was afraid of rejecting me, like, immediately invited me to all these things. This is very embarrassing.
Why?
Because I am deeply loved.
Oh my gosh. And then I told you that an hour ago. You got mad at me.
No, I knew I was loved by like, yeah. So, no, yeah, I did.
Because this is super helpful to me. I feel so much more comfortable now.
Me too.
I was like, Ben, because I was like trying to be like your ally and your protector and help you. And I wonder if that's happening to families, like moms with their kids.
Oh, yeah.
When the mom's like, it's going to be work. I love you. It's going to work. We can do this. Like, I know you're sad and I'm so sorry. I don't want anyone to hurt you, but people will. So let's make you resilient and strong in the face of it. And the kid's like, I can't believe you're so dismissive. You know? Like,
yeah.
What's the secret sauce here?
I think it was for this specific situation, it was understanding the source of the pain,
mm-hmm.
which was the perceived rejection of my new ward. Really,
yeah.
As we've talked about already.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like, I can't be there. Like, the way I've been feeling, I don't think I can continue doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to continue doing that. Well, I mean, the truth is, like, I could be like, hey, everyone, I'm gay, and they could, like, release me from my calling. Like that could happen. Or my stake president could say, oh, Ben, you're going on dates with guys. I'm taking your temp to recommend. Like that could happen. That does happen.
And what do you do after that?
I would be really hurt.
Of course.
And so that probably won't happen, but it could. And so I guess I just need to let the fears I have bear out. Like either they happen or they don't. I really like my last stake president was like my friend.
Yeah.
I remember like buddy, but like we'd known each other for a few years. We used to work on the same temple shift. And I don't even know my new stake president's name. And he probably doesn't know who I am either. And so I guess it's there's a fear of the unknown, and I think it's common for people, especially minorities like us, to imagine the worst.
We're primed to.
Yeah,
because that's how we survived growing up.
And if it is the worst, like if you did say, hey, if you keep dating, you're going to lose your temp recommend, then I'd get to make a choice, and that wouldn't be an unhealthy thing, but it would be a painful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I didn't even realize I was doing this unconsciously, but the last time I went to the temple, I looked at my temple recommend, and it doesn't need to be renewed for a long time. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to be my stake president for a long time. I was bummed about that. And now I'm realizing why, because if I actually knew him and he knew me, then I would be less afraid of him. But yeah, I guess I hadn't quite realized I'm afraid of my stake president, whose name I don't even know. So he gave a talk at state conference. I didn't remember his name.
It's easy to be paranoid when you finally kind of can't not be, right? I guess.
Yeah. And then it's so funny because like now as I realize this, you're like, well, go meet him. And I could easily set up an appointment with him. And I'm like, oh, but he's so busy. And like, there's a sense of like, I don't want to be a burden to him, but no, I have to be. Like,
I mean, in this way, I relate a lot, and I completely understand the fear of moving into new ward and being scary, like being viewed as dangerous. I know that really well, what it's like for people I don't know to anticipate danger in me. And I feel like that's where like this beautiful work of telling your story and going in with open arms, open palms, and not expecting anything and being realistic about what could happen, but also what could happen, right?
Yeah.
And so often, like, as LGBTQ individuals, we expect the worst.
Yeah.
We anticipate for the worst, and we prepare for the worst, and we go through this immense emotional turmoil and pain when actually it's okay. Or even if it's painful, it's okay painful. I feel like that's the space I'm in right now.
Yeah. One of the ways, like, once again, I'd be a little embarrassed because one of the ways I'm like so lucky is I just have way too much self-esteem. And I feel like I legit feel like people are lucky to have me in their life, and I'm lucky to have them in my life. And so I think, well, if the bishop got to know me, he'd be so glad to know me.
But it's interesting because you haven't been feeling self-esteem, because when you talked about listening to conference, anything that was said about sin or devil or anything, you were just like, oh my gosh, that's what people think about me.
Yeah, but I also think like if they actually got to know me, then they would like me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but belonging is internal, right? So like you have to belong to yourself and be comfortable moving into that wilderness place where there might not be belonging, or like external belonging is imperfect. And you have to move into that courageous space and be like, I know who I am, and I value what I have to offer, and I am courageous enough to show it to you.
Yeah.
And all of its beautiful and scary and ugly glory. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And in order to feel belonging, you have to risk. So the risk is like social safety, right? You have to do that.
Oh, I'm so annoyed right now.
How is it different than the old annoyance?
Yes, I'm annoyed with myself.
Why?
Because I felt so strongly I needed to be in this ward. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, didn't you have like the craziest prompting to be in this ward?
I have like a super strong prompting. I was like, it's time to go to this ward, and this is why. Like, this is the next day.
Because you needed to grow.
Wow. I'm glad I'm picking it up now, but I just am surprised I missed those.
I think it makes sense. It's hard to see in yourself, really. I literally needed that friend that I told you about to be like, I'm sorry. Like, you're just gonna have to figure this out. And then I was mad, and then I was like, oh, I started making all these realizations and noticing where I could take accountability for my own pain. And then it made the actual pain easy to see and easy to validate and easy to feel. Whereas before it was just getting clogged up by this manufactured pain that my trauma was promoting. Or my fear.
Yeah, that's true. Ugh, great, I get to grow now.
That's amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Well,
I guess since we started at conference, can we end at conference?
Yeah, we can.
Elder Hales talked about mortality works. And I feel like that's kind of in an interesting way what this is.
Yeah.
Like this pain and this joy and moving through hard experiences and allowing them to make you more resilient and push towards God and really like becoming is hard. Becoming is a very taxing process. It stretches you to where you think you're about to break, and then it opens a new channel, a new chapter of self-awareness and peace.
Yeah.
And I really believe that mortality works, and this is how it works.
Yeah. Can I share something that Brother Wilcox said? He loves little turns of phrase, which honestly kind of annoy me. But anyway, he's like, we're not earning heaven, we're learning heaven. He always says phrases like that. But he said, it would be easy for God to give me all he has, but it's much harder for me to become all he is. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. This is a chance for us to like develop God-like qualities.
Right. That's what I was saying when I was like, what a blessing to be judged, because Christ was judged. And if I'm going to become like Christ, like to taste that and to be able to deal with it just shows me how powerful he is.
Oh my gosh. I'm so embarrassed.
Why?
This reminds me of one of my favorite talks. It's A Hilarious Theology of Suffering by Francine Benyon. It's so good. And she tells the story of teaching like a group of institute kids. And they're like talking about like what heaven's like, and like it's a place where you're loved all the time and never judged and everything's perfect and no one ever thinks ill of you. And she's like, do you think God doesn't feel those things? Do you think God's not judged? And she's like, heaven isn't some utopia where everything is fixed. It's where we can make sense of all the things.
Heaven is progress.
Yeah,
just doing that internal work. I'm actually really proud of both of us for like staying in it. Because it was kind of uncomfortable there for a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, Ben, like, you don't get me. Like, you don't know what I'm trying to say. And you were like,
you don't get me.
Yeah. But it turns out, like, we were just...
The problem was my ward.
Your ward doesn't get you.
And it turns out the problem was my fears and my hiding.
Yeah. And I just wonder how many people listening that are hurting and feel invalidated in their pain like maybe it's time to really take that scary look inside yourself and say, am I operating from a place of fear? Am I operating from a place of hiding? And is that where my turmoil is coming from? And I just really do believe that as we remove the sources of our manufactured pain, we're able to process the real, like the true pain, and use that to propel us and to make us more like God. Truly, that pain is, I believe the real pain is like sanctified.
Yeah. And I also want to give space to people who, unlike me, like the pain isn't projected or perceived, but like is like the rejection actually happened.
Yeah, it's hard. But it's fun. Mortality works.
Mortality works.
Final thoughts? We've been on a journey.
My final thoughts are, I'm grateful that we can have these kinds of conversations. And I'm grateful that we can disagree and figure things out and work through things. And I hope this wasn't terribly awkward for the listeners to listen to. So hope it was at least helpful in some way.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Or it was just an embarrassing conversation that we had that was very personal that we put out into the world.
Well, I love you, Ben, and I'm really like encouraged and impressed by your vulnerability.
Thank you, Charlie. I love you too. All right, so that was the end of the episode. Well, I mean, the episode's still going, but that was the end of the conversation that we recorded.
And it ended with that thing. We love each other.
Yeah, and I do love you, Charlie.
I love you too.
Yeah, but it's been 2 weeks since we recorded that episode, and we've had a lot of time to think about it and process it. And we've talked on the phone a number of times, and also we've listened to the episode, like as we were editing it and all that.
Right. It was interesting to listen back to and be like, oh, you idiot, like why didn't you say that there, or why didn't you realize there? And it was funny because both of us seemed to be having these like in the heat of the moment. It was almost like our capacity to have the right conversation was like diluted a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also I remember like I told people after, like, we had a fight And then when I listened, I was like, it didn't sound like a fight.
It didn't feel like a fight listening back to it. Was if we were like, I really care about you. And also I'm noticing this. And you're like, I feel like you don't see me. But yeah, it definitely was tense though.
Yeah. But a lot of people, I've gotten more comments about this episode than I have on an episode in a very long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, talk to me about you and how you talk to me. And just a few things that I just want to share is that beforehand, you and I had talked about how you had a really good experience at conference, and I had a less good experience. And so you said, and so we talked about you just like interviewing me. So that was like set out that you would like kind of lead the conversation.
Leading and prodding a little bit.
And you would say like, is it okay if I poke you? I was like, yeah, poke away. So I had given you permission to like push me and really like dive into things. And also we know each other really well. And like I think you pushed me way more than you would push someone else.
Totally.
But like I at no point in that conversation I think Charlie doesn't care about me, Charlie doesn't love me, Charlie isn't here with me. Because like I know you, and that conversation isn't in isolation. Like we have a long history of friendship.
Right. Well, thank you for saying that. I also, even with that though, I noticed listening back, I was like, I was pushing too hard. I think because I was in that like fix it mode and try to figure it out mode, I wasn't picking up on all of the areas where you actually like were in pain. And I think one time you had even said like, my feelings are hurt now, but they were. And I was like, no, I really should have known you. Just be like, Ben's hurting. And before I answer anything, before I like answer questions or poke anymore, we just need to sit there. And that's like a lesson I know, but I just didn't apply it fully. And I am really sorry for that. Yeah. It probably felt like, I can imagine that felt like jarring and condescending. And that probably wasn't fun to be on the receiving end of.
It wasn't, but I mean, we worked through it. Those feelings didn't last very long.
Yeah.
Which honestly is like one of the hard things about releasing that half the episode first is like our feelings were resolved really fast.
And
then a lot of
within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed was that like the pain you were feeling wasn't in isolation. I think that's looking back with like my now eyes. I was like, oh, why? I felt like I was operating through like, this is an episode about conference and there's other things going on. Why are we talking? Like it felt like off thesis, but I should have just been like, duh, of course that's going to happen, right? Because we don't exist in isolation, and the pain we feel as members of the church who are LGBTQ plus often comes from like different ways. And I think that like probably was the point. And I was just like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this saying in the therapy world, which is the past remains the present until it is processed. And I think I have things from the past that come up in the present because I haven't like fully processed like the pain and the hurt of things that have happened in the past.
Yeah, I think you were incredibly vulnerable and brave. Even to like, I appreciate how you let me like keep poking, even though I shouldn't have been doing that. Like, and I wish I could go back and be a little bit more kind. But you were like open to it, and it was really amazing to see like your capacity to just like sit in the discomfort, because we did find out what the root of the problem was, and it maybe wasn't like the best way to get there, but I appreciate that you were still willing to see that even though you were hurt. That's like really impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, what good would it do me to be mad at you?
Yeah.
That wouldn't do me any good. Should we talk about some lessons learned?
Yeah.
There's a lesson that I learned, and I can't remember if this is in John 5 or 6. I think it's John 6, where Jesus first teaches about how he's going to, like, he'll be sacrificed and everyone needs to, like, eat his flesh and drink his blood. And people are like, that's weird. And they leave. And then Jesus turns to the disciples and he says, will ye also go away? And I think, like, that's often used to talk about, like, well, will you leave the church too? But as I've been thinking about this, it's like, will we leave the conversation too? Like, if the conversation is uncomfortable, are we going to leave the conversation? And I'm just really glad that we were willing to stick with the conversation. Like, while we were talking, we didn't think, oh, this is going to be an episode. We just like kept talking, and the camera just happened to be on.
Yeah.
And I think a lesson that I felt from this experience, and I hope that the listener will have, is like don't give up on the conversation. Like, if this person has shown they love you, if they're trying, if they're being sincere, if they're not doing the right way or the best way, like will ye also go away? Like don't go away. Like stick with the conversation.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's such a powerful message. And again, I'm just so glad that we both did. So thank you for sticking in it with me.
Of course.
Yeah. Another lesson I learned is I think it was just a cool way to model, and we mentioned this too, but it was just a fascinating way to model what the conversations are like when people are in two different places, or like parents with a child, or siblings with a sibling. I just feel like this sort of thing happens a lot, where people are in different places. And looking back for me, like, I noticed that I think part of the reason I was so spooked at what you were saying is because, like, I just care about you so much. I'm like, Ben, I just want you to be so happy. And it's like, I don't want you to be in pain, right? And I think part of it too, I was like, Ben, I didn't want you to go back to that place where you were scared to be yourself. And I could see it happening, and I wanted to like pull you back over.
Yeah.
But the lesson I learned, again, which it was probably a lesson I'll keep learning for the rest of my life, is that, like, there's always time to keep sitting in the pain. And if the person will come back to the, like, a brighter headspace, it's their thing to do.
Yeah.
And you really just can't force it.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a principle I wrote about in my book, and this doesn't work for everyone, but it works for me, and I think it works for most people, where most people don't want an answer. Like, we already like have the answers inside of us. We like, what a conversation like this does is it helps us like think and ponder and then find the answer in ourselves. And so I think the reason I was getting frustrated was you were telling me the answer. You're like, hey, here's what you do, when I just needed some more time to like think and process, and then the answer was like going to come from.
Yeah. And again, I just feel like I should have noticed that those are answers that I've heard you give before, and I should have just known, like, it's not, he'll get there. Like, he does know it, and he's got to get there himself.
Yeah.
And in an interesting way, I hope this is okay to say, but it made me really grateful that, like, I have someone to like go home to. Listening back, there's a moment where you talk about like going to church and being like, ooh, who do I sit with? Like, I'm just here by myself. And I know what that feels like, and it's sad. But I was just like, wow, like, I feel like really grateful and almost like a little bit like too lucky to have someone to where like some of that shifty feelings really is gone, because I have a partner who I really know is committed to me and cares about me. And at the end of the day, if everything goes to crap, like, he's there for me. And I'm sorry you don't have that. And not if you, does that make sense? I hope that comes across the right way.
This comes across very loving and kind. I think what you're saying is like, I'm talking about feeling like I don't belong. And when you have a partner, there's someone you 1000% belong.
Yeah, like I just have more belonging now. And I was just like, oh, I'm sorry, Ben. Like, I'm so sorry that you're moving into this place that feels scarier for you. And it like feels scarier and feels like there's not that sinker of belonging that I'm sorry.
And I'm going to be okay. And since we recorded the episode and I had all my aha moments, I met with my bishop, talked with him. Yeah, I talked with my bishop.
That's so fun.
And it was just like, he moved up tithing settlement like a month. And so we chatted, and he's like, how are things in the board? I was like, actually, it's been kind of hard. And I told him everything I'd been feeling. He was so kind. He asked what he could do to help. And then I reached out to the stake president to set up an appointment, and I've never met him, but we're going to chat tomorrow.
Cool. That's awesome. That's so brave.
Yeah.
Good job.
So hopefully that'll go great too. So I'm trying to do what I can to fix the problems that I was experiencing.
Yeah. That's brave. Good job. Yeah.
Should we address any of the comments that people made?
I feel like we probably kind of did. I didn't like that people were like, I'm team Charlie, I'm team Ben, because I just like, I almost feel like that's missing the point, where the point is like to stay in the conversation, right?
Yeah. And
when you mentioned like talking to your bishop and stake president, again, that thought I had was like, I hope people stay in the conversation, because this is it really is a messy place, a messy space to be in. And I hope, again, you're not just like, Charlie was this way, Ben was this way, this is how I perceive them. But I really hope it can be applied to something bigger and modeled instead of about our relationship, because really we're fine. And like you said, we have a full relationship outside of the hour that we record.
Yeah. And since this was a conversation that you and I had, but I really do hope the listener doesn't look at this as a conversation between you and me, but as a model of what what happens, like both good and bad, in these kinds of conversations. And so if someone's like, I agree with Charlie or I agree with Ben, they're missing, like you said, missing the point of like what can be learned from observing this kind of conversation.
Right. It was fun to go back and like take accountability for what we were doing to make it worse, or be like, that thing Ben said right there really hurt me and put me super on guard. And I didn't tell him that, but I did have more of an edge after that. Like I realized that. And I think it was good for me to check, like, I should have calmed myself better. But like, when you're talking about LGBTQ issues and religion, you're going to be triggered a lot by a lot of different things from maybe areas you don't even know where they're coming from. And it was fun to see us both do that and then stay in it. And again, I'm just so grateful that you stayed in it.
Yeah. I'm
sorry that I forced you to stay in it.
No, it was good. And it honestly, that conversation led to good things in my life.
Yeah. Afterwards, Ben was like, well, you did grow up on a ranch. And I was like, I really did. Awesome. Well, we hope that you all enjoyed this episode, and hopefully you feel a little bit more peace. And thank you so much for staying in it and for listening to these conversations. And I think this is the way we grow. And I love you, Ben.
I love you too, Charlie.